If your prayers have gone dry in your mouth, I am still leaning close to hear them. If the thirst in you has outlasted every well you once knew how to find, come and stand where I can reach you. When the praise that used to rise on its own went quiet, and the quiet stretched into weeks, and the weeks stopped surprising you, I did not walk out of the room. When you opened the pages that once warmed you and felt only paper under your thumb, I was nearer than the ache that told you I was gone. And if you have looked at the hardest, most barren thing in your life, the stone that has never once given you a single drop, and stopped asking it for anything at all, hear me now, in this moment, as these words find you. You are not being disciplined with silence. The stream did not stop because I stopped loving you. There is a spring hidden in the very place you have written off as dead. I want to bring you to it before you decide the desert is all there is. So come close. Come the way a thirsty person comes to the edge of anything that might be water. There is no rush in it, no test at the door. You do not have to arrive composed. You do not have to have found your way back to some warmer version of yourself first. You can come exactly as parched as you are. That will be enough to begin. Let me start with the thing you have been most afraid to say out loud. So I will say it for you. You are dry, not tired in the way a good day makes you tired. Dry underneath. In the place your faith used to live and move, the songs do not reach it. The verses slide across the surface. They find nowhere to soak in. You go through the motions, the ones you learned when you were greener. The motions feel like a bucket lowered into a well. It gives back only the sound of stone. I know that sound. I have heard it come up out of you, more times than you have let anyone guess. There were mornings you sat with the open book in your lap, reading the same paragraph 3 times, waiting for it to land. It would not land. You closed it quietly and told no one. There were nights the only thing you had left to offer me was a single tired breath. You were half ashamed of how little it was. I was not ashamed of it. I gathered it up like something precious. And notice something with me before we go one step further. The thirst itself is not the proof that I have left. A person who feels nothing at all does not lie awake grieving, not the loss of my nearness. The very fact that the dryness hurts you is the root that still remembers the water. Dead ground does not thirst. You are not dead ground. That hollow ache you keep trying to explain away, it is not evidence against you. It is the part of you that was made for me. It is calling out. It has not been watered in far too long. I would rather have your honest thirst, not a polished performance of a faith you no longer feel. Let one breath leave you now, slow and unhurried, emptier at the end than the one before it. The way parched earth finally lets the rain sink in instead of running it off. You do not have to fill the silence with anything. You do not have to manufacture a feeling to prove your heart is still turned toward me. Just breathe, and let the breath be the first honest prayer you have prayed in a while, the kind that needs no words because it is only a body saying, I am still here, and I am so thirsty. There. That reached me. That was heard. Now hear who you are in this dry season. The season has been lying to you about it. You are not a failure of faith. A field in drought. It has not stopped being a field. It is still exactly the ground I planted. Still holding every seed. Still able to green in an hour when the water comes. Your barrenness right now is weather. It is not a verdict about your worth to me. It is not the final word about what your life will grow. The one who has not felt me in so long that they have started to wonder if they ever really did. You are not further from me than the greenest believer in the warmest season of their life. You may be closer. Nearness to me was never measured by how much you feel. Some of the people I have held tightest were holding on in the dark, with dry mouths, saying words they could no longer feel. I counted that faith as pure gold. It cost them everything to keep it. A green faith in an easy year. A lovely thing. A faith that keeps its grip through the drought is a rare one. There is more than one way to arrive in a place like this. I see each of them. The one whose praying grew shorter and shorter across the seasons, until it thinned to a single word, thrown up at the ceiling before sleep. I am not disappointed by the short prayer. It costs a parched person more to say one dry line, more than it costs a rested one to say 100. The one who reads and feels the words go flat, who used to weep over a page and now closes the book unmoved, and wonders what broke. Nothing in you broke that I cannot mend. The one who leads others, who stands up front and helps thirsty people find water while carrying a private drought no one has guessed at. I saw the gap between what your hands were doing and what your heart had left. I did not think less of you for it. The one who sits among a crowd that seems to be drinking freely and smiles and lifts empty hands and goes home hollow. I was not fooled by the smile. I was not ashamed of the emptiness. You have been treating your dry season like a secret sin to hide. It is not a sin. It is a stretch of wilderness. Even my most beloved ones have had to cross it. Prophets crossed it. The ones who wrote the songs you still sing crossed it. Some of them wrote their truest lines from the middle of it with cracked lips. I know the small evidence of it that you carry alone. There is the journal that used to fill with your heart. Now it sits open to a blank page you cannot find words for. There is the quiet hour you once set aside that slowly got smaller, then got skipped. You stopped feeling guilty, and that not feeling guilty scared you more than the skipping did. There is the moment in the middle of a busy day when a hunger for me rises up out of nowhere, sharp and sudden, and then it is gone before you can answer it. You are left wondering whether you imagined it. You did not imagine it. That was the root reaching for the source. I felt it the instant it happened. None of these things marked you as far from me. They were the flares your own thirst was sending up. I saw every one. I know, too, about the moment you needed to feel me most and felt nothing. The night the news came, or the loss landed, or the fear stood over your bed, you reached for the nearness, the one that had carried you before. Your hand closed on empty air. That is the drought that frightens a person more than any other. Not the dry, ordinary weeks, but the dry hour of real need, when the well you always counted on gives back only echo. Hear this plainly. You may have secretly believed the opposite ever since. I was not absent that night. Felt nearness and actual nearness are not the same thing. The enemy of your soul has worked hard to convince you they are. I was holding you. Through the very hour you could not feel me holding you. The numbness was the wound, not the withdrawal. And I know where so much of this landed on you, in the rooms where you were pouring yourself out for everyone but yourself. You are the one others come to when their own wells run low. You hold the family together, with a steadiness that no one has ever once named as courage. You refill everyone else's cup at the table, and forget whether you ever poured your own. You carry the worry for a child who is struggling, the ache over a parent who is fading, the low, constant hum of 100 obligations. You carry all of it while your own inner ground has quietly gone to dust. You pray over other people's doors and other people's fears. You are the strong one, the reliable one, the one who always seems to have a little more to give. So the dryness deepened without anyone seeing it under all that giving. The well you were drawing from was your own fading memory of me instead of me. And memory alone, however sweet it once was, cannot stay wet forever. A person can run on the remembered taste of water for a long time, but the day comes when remembering is not enough. You have to be led back to the source itself. I watched that day arrive in you. I watched you keep serving from a dry place and calling it faithfulness. There was real faithfulness in it. I will not scold you for it. But I did not make you to be an endless spring for everyone else while you slowly turned to sand. You were made to drink too. You were made to be filled too. The care you pour out was always meant to overflow from a full place, not to be scraped up off the bottom of an empty one. Think, for a moment, of the ones who cross real deserts. They know that country in a way the rest of us never will. They do not despair at the sight of dry stone, not the way a stranger would. They have learned to read the land. They know a certain kind of green, low in a crevice. It means water is near the surface. They know to dig at the base of a cliff, where the runoff would have gathered and sunk. They know the driest-looking rock can be hiding the coolest spring. They have staked their lives on it more than once. I am asking you to learn to read your own wilderness. Like that. To stop seeing the barren place as simply barren. To look at the hardest surface in your life and wonder for the first time in a long while whether there is water waiting just behind it. Because that is where I want you to look now. At the hardest place in your life, the one you have already decided is a dead end. Maybe it is a person who has not softened in years. A relationship set as hard as a boulder in the road. One you have stopped praying about, because praying only reopened the disappointment. Maybe it is a situation that has stood immovable so long you have quietly filed it under never. Maybe it is a sealed room in your own heart, a hope you buried because keeping it alive hurt more than letting it die. You have stared at that stone until you cannot picture anything living ever coming out of it. That is the exact kind of place I am talking about. Not the soft, promising ground where anyone would expect a spring. The rock, the last spot on earth a thirsty person would ever think to dig. That is where I have made a habit of breaking water loose, so that no one could mistake it for anything but me. Stay here a moment, right in the middle of this, because I want to give you something to hold, and not only to hear. Rest the flat of your hand lightly over your throat, over the narrow place a swallow passes through. This is where thirst is felt first. It is where a prayer has to climb up out of you on its way to me. Feel how tight it has gone, how long it has been since anything moved through it easily. Now, without straining, let one word form there, low and dry, so low that only I could hear it. It does not have to be beautiful. It can be the truest word you own right now, even if the word is only help, or here, or thirsty, or my name said once into the quiet. Say it the way water first moves through cracked ground, slow, small, and enough. That single word, forced up through a dry throat, reaches me. Faster than a full choir on an easy day, I have been waiting on it, not because I needed the sound, but because I wanted you to remember your own voice could still find me. The muscle of prayer has not died, not in you. It has only gone unused. One word is how it begins to move again, and if that is exactly where you are, if the honest word that came up was thirsty, you can leave it down in the comments. Not for anyone else to read, just as one true thing set down after a long silence. Sometimes, a heart needs to hear itself admit the dryness before it can believe there is water on the way. You are allowed to say you are running on empty. Admitting it is not the opposite of faith. It is the doorway back into it. Now let me reach for the belief that has kept you from the spring, and let me be gentle with it. You did not come to it carelessly. Somewhere back there, disappointment became a teacher. It taught you fast. You asked the dry place for water once and twice and a 10th time, and it gave you nothing. So you learned the sensible lesson. Stop asking the rock for anything. It seemed like wisdom. It felt like protecting yourself from one more letdown. You did not build that rule, not out of some lie about who I am. You built it yourself quietly, out of real years. Years when hoping out loud only seemed to leave you thirstier than before. I understand the rule. I even honor the wound it grew from. It was a way of surviving a long drought. It kept you upright, when you badly needed to stay upright. But a rule made in one dry season does not know how to recognize the day the water is finally ready to break. It keeps guarding you against a disappointment that has already changed its mind. And that is the day you are standing in now. Whether or not it yet feels like it, and there is a quieter belief tucked underneath that rule. The one you would never say to another soul. You have half decided the drought is your fault. That somewhere you did something, or failed to do something, and this dry stretch is the bill coming due. So you have stopped coming close, the way a person avoids the one they think they have let down. Let me pull that thorn out gently. Dry seasons are not always discipline. They are rarely the punishment you assume. Sometimes the ground simply goes dry for a while in a world still bent and broken. And the dryness is not a sentence I passed on you. My best loved ones walked through wilderness that had nothing to do with sin. They were led there, kept there, and fed there. If your first instinct is to read your drought as evidence that I am finished with you, that instinct is a liar. I do not send rain only on the deserving. I never have. Here is the turn your dry season has kept you from making. You have been treating my silence as my absence. They are not the same thing. A well can be full and still and utterly silent, with a person dying of thirst right beside it, simply because no one ever told them the water was there. The stillness you have read as rejection has been something else. The whole time, it has been the deep quiet of a spring, not yet struck open. Think of how much water in this world runs unseen, underground, moving through the dark, beneath ground that looks like nothing but dust on the surface. You cannot hear it, you cannot see it, and it is there, patient, waiting for the one place where the stone finally gives way. What if the thing you have been calling abandonment was the patience of water waiting under rock for you to stop walking past it? Let me read you something that was written down long before your dry season began. For people whose thirst had gone past their strength. They were in a wilderness with no water anywhere in sight, no reasonable hope of any. They had begun to believe they had been led out into all that emptiness to die. They looked around at cracked ground and bare stone. They had already begun saying their goodbyes. And then the ground they thought was cursed became the very place their rescue came from. This is the line. I want you to hear every word of it. Psalm 78:15. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them water as abundant as the seas. Read it slowly with me. He split the rocks, not soft soil, not a hidden stream someone finally stumbled onto. The rock, the hardest, driest, most hopeless surface in that whole desert, is exactly what I opened. And what came out was not a trickle rationed drop by drop to keep them barely alive. Water as abundant as the seas, from stone, in a desert, for people who had already given up. I did not measure it out to match how much faith they could muster on their worst day. I broke it loose like an ocean. The point was never their strength. The point was that when water comes pouring out of a rock, no one can pretend it came from anywhere but me. A stream in a green valley you might credit to good fortune. A flood out of dry stone leaves only one explanation. And there is something about that rock in the wilderness that took generations to understand, until one of my own finally looked back and named it. That rock was Christ, my own Son, the cleft in the stone, standing in the driest place with you. Struck once so that living water could reach every parched mile you would ever have to walk. He was the smitten rock, wounded in your place, so that you would never be the one who runs dry for good. The water that broke out of the stone in that desert was only a shadow of him. So when I tell you a spring is hidden in your barren place, I am not promising you a mood. Not a mood that will come and go with the weather. I am telling you, my Son is the source. He does not evaporate. The feeling of me may rise and fall in you 100 times across a lifetime. He does not rise and fall. He was broken open once. The water has been running toward you ever since. And notice what it cost him to become your spring. The one who is the source of all living water let himself go thirsty for you. At the very end, he was hanging in the dry heat. the whole weight of the world's dryness on him. He said 2 words out loud: "I thirst." Let that reach you, the deepest place in you. Your rock knows the cracked mouth from the inside. He is not a source that has never felt what you feel. He went down into the driest hour any human ever suffered, the total absence of comfort, so that your dry hours would never be able to separate you from him again. When you tell me you are thirsty, you are not speaking to a stranger to thirst. You are speaking to the one who was parched in your place. He came up out of it, carrying an ocean with your name on it. Hold on to that. It changes what you are waiting for. You have been waiting to feel a certain way again. You have been measuring my presence by whether the feeling has come back. But the spring in your wilderness is not a feeling. It is a person. And he has already given himself to you completely, whether your senses register it on a given morning or not. Feelings are the weather that moves over the land. He is the water table underneath, steady, unhurried, there in the dry months exactly as much as in the green ones. When the feeling returns, and it will, receive it as a gift and not as a wage. And when it has not yet returned, do not conclude that the water is gone. Learn to trust the source beneath the surface, more than the mood on top of it. That is what it means to drink from Christ, instead of from your own good days. Look back now at the question you have carried into this whole message. Whether the silence over your life has been me turning my face away. Here is your answer, straight from the split rock. The silence was never rejection. It was water under stone, waiting for you to come close enough to receive it. You kept reading the dryness as the end of the story. It was the ground right before the spring. All this time you thought you were being asked to survive on nothing. You were actually standing a hand's breadth from more than you could ever drink. So let me tell you what it is like when the water finally breaks. I do not want you watching for the wrong thing and missing it when it comes. It does not always arrive as a flood, not one you can see from a distance. Often it comes the way rain comes to ground that has been hard for months. At first the drops just sit on the surface. Nothing seems to change, and you are tempted to believe it will run off and leave you as parched as before. But stay. Let it keep falling. Somewhere below what you can feel, the ground is beginning to soften. The cracks are beginning to close. Roots that had gone brittle, they are beginning to remember what water is for. The return of what you lost. It will not always announce itself with any fanfare. It may come back the way green returns to a hillside after a long dry spell. Quietly, from underneath, in a corner you were not even watching. Until one ordinary morning you notice something is alive in you again, something you were certain you had buried for good. Let the hand you have been holding tight fall open for a breath, palm up, the way you would hold it out under the first drops of rain after a long, cloudless stretch. You might feel the water first as one line of an old song that suddenly has weight again. You might feel it as a prayer that comes without effort for the first time in longer than you can remember. You might feel it as tears you did not plan, in a moment that did not seem to warrant them, which is only the ground finally soft enough to let something through. Do not rush to explain those moments away. Do not weigh them against how you felt at your most fervent years ago and decide they do not count. Each one is the spring reaching you. Receive it small before you demand it large, and it will grow. There is a difference worth learning to feel between a cistern and a spring. You have been trying to live off the wrong one. A cistern is something you fill yourself, carrying it in bucket by bucket. It holds only as much as you manage to pour in. And in a drought it drops lower and lower until it cracks and leaks out through the bottom. So much of your tiredness comes from trying to be your own cistern, hoarding a little stored-up sense of me and rationing it out, terrified of the day it runs empty. But I never asked you to be a cistern. I offered you a spring, fed from somewhere far beyond your own supply, flowing, whether you are strong that day or not. Stop hauling buckets. Come and be a place the living stream flows through. not a tank you are forever trying to keep from going dry. The difference between the exhausted faith and the resting one is exactly this. One is guarding a cistern. The other has found the spring. Here is a way to come back to the water. You can carry it into the plainest days ahead of you. When you find yourself in front of the hard place, the person, the situation, the door you stopped knocking on, do not go to it the way you used to, braced to strike it, demanding it hand over what it never has. Come to it the way you would come to a spring, one you have finally decided to believe is there. Simply ask one quiet line: Lord, I am thirsty here. Break the water loose. You are not commanding the rock. You are turning your empty cup toward the only one who can fill it. You may not feel a single thing the first time you do it, or the 10th. But somewhere down the line, on a day you are not keeping any score at all, you will feel the ground go soft under a place that has been stone for years. And you will understand that the asking had been reaching me the entire time. The change was happening underground long before it broke the surface. And do not wait until you feel worthy to come. You do not have to cross the desert first, and then be permitted at the water. The water is what carries you across. Let the dryness be honest between us. Do not dress it up. Do not apologize for it. Do not hold yourself back until you feel more faithful. Come thirsty. Come with the empty cup, and the cracked ground, and the prayer that fits inside one syllable. That is exactly the person the split rock was for. The wilderness people did not earn that water by their devotion. They received it in the middle of their doubt. The one who splits the stone is moved by thirst, not by performance. If waiting to be worthy were the requirement, no one would ever drink. Thirst is the only ticket the spring has ever asked for. The rock in your wilderness is not your ending. The thirst you carry is not your punishment. The silence you feared was not me leaving. It was the water held under stone, waiting for the thirsty one to stop walking past. And the rock that pours it out has a name and a face. He was broken so that you would never run dry again. Come and drink. There is more here than your longest drought could ever use up. Amen. Before this fades, let me leave one question in your hands. What is the dry place you had already given up on? The person, the season, the part of your own heart you stopped expecting anything from? Name it below, in a word or a line. I read everyone. And if a certain thirsty soul came to mind while you listened, someone crossing their own wilderness convinced no water is coming, carry this to them. There is a spring in their rock too.